Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode one of Financial Classroom. I'm your host, Will, and on the other side of the mic is Tim.
Hey, I'm Tim, and we're just going to take this first episode to talk with you a little bit about where we come from, some of the financial mistakes that we've made along the way, and just some of our goals. We hope that you can learn a little bit from this. Maybe learn a few tips and tricks to help you figure out what your financial goals might be, and to hopefully learn from our mistakes so that you can avoid some of your own.
Yeah,
So
so
Will, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your background in finance is?
sure. I'm 26 years old. We just a background of why this whole podcast even started is Tim and I are both very passionate about finances. We're passionate about um, succeeding financially, and we're passionate about um, seeing others succeed financially. And my background, personally in finance, I do not have a degree in finance. However, I am frugal. I've always been like that. My parents are like that. I was raised like that. So living below my means is kind of how I was raised up. So I guess a lot of times when Tim and I get together, we often talk finances, and um, this is how this kind of podcast came to be, Financial Classroom. The reason for a classroom is so people can learn in a way, but we're trying to be personal. We want to show people our story, where we came from, the mistakes that we've made. And then, so episode one is more about that. We want to talk about, personal mistakes that Tim's made and personal mistakes that I've made, and what we have learned so far in our young life, I guess, for some of you listeners out there. And yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of background about why we started this and where I kind of came from. And Tim, you want to just talk about the whole process of why we decided to do this, and just a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I'm 26 years old. I actually do have a financial background. I did my Bachelor of Business Administration in accounting, and I'm pursuing my Chartered Professional Accountant designation right now. I've just got a little ways left to go on that. But yeah, I guess similar to what Will said, I guess I see financial mistakes being made everywhere, and I've made several of them myself. And I guess both of us just wanted to start a podcast that will where we can all help each other learn from our mistakes, where we can yeah, just share a little bit about what we've learned. Yeah, I like Will. My parents were also frugal. They were always looking out for those pink reduced price stickers at Superstore. It was kind of a running joke in my household that, like, if we were getting like chocolate milk or something like that, it's like, oh hey, there's a pink price tag on it. Hey, probably. And, my dad just loved the pink price tags. But yeah, I guess so that definitely influenced me growing up. I learned to be frugal that way. But yeah, I've learned a lot more about living wisely financially. I've still got a long ways to go, I'm sure, but I've definitely learned a thing or two along the way here.
Mhm.
Uh,
So as most listeners, if you don't know, we're Canadians, and the reason I think a lot of people our age, in our age range, what they call millennials, I guess, the majority of us in our age group are still struggling with student loan debt. Uh, a lot of people still struggle with credit card debt, or getting lines of credits, and a lot of people at this age, when they're young, they don't think about, I guess, the consequences of starting to save early and invest early. And I think this podcast will be touching on that type of subjects too. And I think we want to see people in our age group succeed, and we'll definitely
mhm.
go into more personal stories, details as more episodes roll out. So Tim, to start, why don't you tell us a little bit of just even up to this point, up to 26-year-old, some of the maybe so-called failures that you've had or lessons that you've learned from finances, for mistakes that you've made in money?
Yeah, for sure. To be honest, I think a lot of them revolve around school, um, which I think is really, really common for people our age. I guess one of them, you kind of look back at it and I mean, I went to Bible college, and while amazing things happened there, it also maybe wasn't the wisest financial decision as well. It costed $17,000 a year, including room and board. Uh, so my first year, fortunately, my parents paid for the second. The government lent me money for. But I always go back to that, and I think to myself, I still could have done Bible school in a less expensive way. There's other ones that are, $8,000, $6,000. And I think to myself, man, that's a lot of student debt that I accrued that way. In total, by the end of Bible school and the end of university, I'd gotten $21,000 in student debt. And just looking at the number at the end of that, I'm like, holy cow, like this is a lot of money. Like, how am I, it's going to take a long time to pay this back. And then I can't even think about, using my money from my job to save up for a house until I've got all of this paid back, and who knows how long it's going to take. So I guess when I graduated, got a job, I really, really put my, put my nose down and face forward. And I really attacked this debt because I just hated the debt. I managed actually to get it paid off in 8 months, 9 months, something like that. But even that was living at my parents' house, got a sweet tax return, trying to live fairly minimally to repay that. But I would say those would be two of my biggest financial mistakes. Would be choosing an expensive school, especially when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just like, everybody tells me, oh, you should, take a year after high school to, solidify your faith or whatever. And, I just kind of followed that advice, but it maybe didn't set me up well financially.
Yeah. So you
So that
touched
would be
on
one. And then also just, taking out student loans and not just choosing school based on the money I have and what I can afford.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So you touched on having that $21,000 debt and even tackling that debt right away. What were like having debt? What did that do to you? Like in a way, like, I mean, you still lived your life, but did you feel like it hindered you in some ways? And also, I guess the other question is, are there any tips and tricks that you did to get rid of that debt? You mentioned that you lived at home, and I'm just wondering if you can touch on some of the, if there's any tricks out there for I guess people our age or even older or younger who are now graduating with debt and they're trying to get out of debt.
Yeah, so I guess it definitely hindered me more, even more so psychologically, just knowing that X amount of my paycheck is going right back to the government. And just even to like the interest that accrues on student loans. I actually didn't realize how high it is. I just kind of assumed, oh, the government is probably, pretty generous. It's probably like a freaking 2% interest rate. And
Yeah.
I think the Saskatchewan one maybe wasn't as bad. It was maybe like a 4%, but I think like the federal was like 6 or 7% or something.
So what was your student loan? Was it federal or was it Saskatchewan?
So like a certain amount is allocated as federal and a certain amount is allocated as provincial.
Mm-hmm.
So I was paying higher interest on some of it, but they don't let you choose which you attack.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of throw it in the pot and they allocate it, is my understanding of it. But yeah, in terms of tips and tricks to attack the debt, yeah, definitely a big one was. Oh, go
I
ahead.
know. I mean, as a student, like I'm not talking like right now we're touching on student loan debt, so we'll stay away from like the credit card and all that. But as a student who is
Yeah,
graduating right now, or who is still in
yeah.
school, who has debt right now and is accumulating more debt, what are your personal experience of ways that you got out of your student loan debt?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, uh, it was various things. One of the big ones actually that helped me from going into more debt was applying for scholarships. I think I got like 7 or 8 grand in scholarships in my last year, so I had almost
Wow.
my last year fully paid for, which was huge. Living at home was a big one. Um, yeah, I think there's kind of a cultural stigma in some ways against living from home, or people are eager to move out of their parents' house as soon as possible, when maybe that's not the best decision overall. And
Mhm.
it's great to take advantage of your parents' generosity like that.
Yeah.
You do, you think about rent and how much that costs, but then you don't think about, how much groceries cost, how much it costs to, just buy your whatever, like toiletries and, furniture, or
Yeah.
anything like that. It really, really adds up. So if you're able to live from home, that's definitely a plus.
I think that's
Um,
actually such a good point because people don't think about that. Let's say if rent is $500 a month for a cheaper rent. Let's say
yeah,
that's $6,000 a year for someone with student loan debt. So
for sure.
if you live at home, you could put towards $6,000. If you're serious, you could put towards that $6,000 towards that loan. And I mean, in 2 years, that's $12,000 right there, right?
Yeah,
And that's not talking about like you mentioned, groceries and electricity bill and power bill and water bill and all that other stuff. If it, depending on the rental situation, like some people have to pay for that, or internet bill and things like that. So that was super smart of you, though. To any other things that you did?
one thing that I didn't do, but I wish I did, was to really be intentional in terms of how much I was spending. It maybe isn't like the easiest thing to budget as a student, but even just in terms of my own expenses, to say like, okay, I'm only going to spend, $75 a month on fast food or things like that,
Hmm.
or this is what my grocery bill is going to be. It was. Uh, yeah, just trying to manage those expenses and not be ridiculous, because I don't, especially as a student, I don't think we realize how much our McDonald's and our Starbucks adds up to.
Yeah.
um yeah, like I was talking with a guy the other day, and he said he went through, he's roughly my age, maybe a little younger. He said he went through his girlfriend's credit card statement, and she had, I think it was $500 between Skip the Dishes, 7-Eleven, and Timmy's.
Wow.
$500. That's 1 month,
Wow.
and I
That's more
think
than
it's
someone's grocery bill.
yeah, exactly. So it's easy for us to lose control or lose sight of what we're spending. And I think as a student, I came at it with the mentality of like, okay, here's a couple, like I need to save $4,000 for next semester. Beyond that, I just need to make sure that my bank account lasts me until the end of the semester, or
Yeah.
the end of the school year.
Yeah.
Um, so really coming at it with a plan to make sure that you aren't at 14 cents by the end of the school year.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Wow, those are good. Nice.
yeah. So uh I guess in terms of you, you've kind of said that your biggest regret was buying a truck at the end of school. Do you want to speak a little bit into that?
Yeah, so like a lot of young folks, the vehicle is uh, a lot of young folks can't buy a house yet. So the vehicle is like this status symbol, it's like this, a gauge of wealth thing kind of thing. And I just had this, it was definitely my dumbest purchase and dumbest financial mistake was getting a truck, a brand new truck. This is back in 2016. So like, I don't know if anyone know if listeners are from the States or other parts of Canada, but Saskatchewan is really cold in the winter. And we get lots and lots of snow. So at the time I thought, a truck was the way to go, but uh, a brand new truck, obviously. So to this, like, so I got the truck, and the issue was I couldn't afford the truck. So I didn't, I got a new job. I just started my career job in law enforcement, and my official salary, my first year was around $55,000 at the time. And here I am buying a $56,000 truck brand new. And so uh, the monthly payment was $275 biweekly. So in a year, it works out to be 600, just under $600 monthly for a truck that was brand new. And so looking back now, I think what I would have done differently. Like, some people think having a vehicle payment is normal, and because so many people have vehicle payments, but vehicle payments is actually such a burden to, I guess I felt it was a burden to myself. Like, every month seeing the money go out, every 2 weeks I see 275 getting taken out of my account. And it was just like, that 275 or that $600 could have went to something else, whether to my savings or to investments. We'll touch on that later on, and maybe in another episode. Like, $600 could have, went into savings, went into investment, or went into, like, just even taking friends out for food, or doing something like other stuff. Like, I think what I would have done differently was I would have still got a truck, but maybe not brand new. I think buying even like a 3, 4, 5 year old like truck that's older could have saved me even like half the price, or like even like, like, instead of $56,000, maybe I could have gotten a truck for like $30,000 or even cheaper than that. And at the time I've saved up enough that I could have, I paid like $25,000 down for this truck. And I think I could have paid $25,000 cash for a vehicle. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest mistake that I've made up to this point financially for me personally. So yeah.
Yeah. So now, from when we've talked outside the show, you told me that it was a 0%, 0%
Yeah,
interest financing,
that's
and I
correct.
think a lot of people out there would say 0% financing. You're sticking it to the dealership. Like, they aren't making any extra money off of you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so do you want to speak into that, and like why that's still a bad decision, or is it a bad decision still because you got 0% financing?
Yes, a lot of dealerships offer 0% financing, but I feel like, personally, I feel like I said, that money that's used could be used for so much more. Like investing money for, let's say, if you get a vehicle for a 5 year term, with a monthly payment of $600, you could take that money and invest it for 5 years in a stock market or in a mutual fund or whatever you want to invest in, and that money can grow to be way more than what you got your truck for. And another thing with brand new vehicles that I find is, I've heard of the saying that the most expensive sound that you'll ever hear is the boom boom, and that's the sound of a brand new vehicle hitting the speed bump leaving the dealership. So the moment you leave a dealership, try and buy a brand new vehicle and then hear that boom boom and drive back and try and sell them the vehicle at the exact same price that you just bought. Even though you put basically 0 kilometers back on the vehicle, they will not buy the vehicle back for the same price. There is no way. Same with, like, if you try and sell it used, like, there's no way anyone will pay the same price that you paid for that car. So the moment,
Yeah.
I feel like, especially your brand new car, the moment you drive it off a dealership, you've lost like 5 grand just like that, or
Yeah.
maybe 2, 3 grand just like that. That's like most expensive sound. That's like boom boom, right? So it's
Yeah.
crazy. So, and another thing is, even with 0% financing, you never know what could happen. Let's say things like COVID hits, right?
Mhm.
And if you don't have the emergency fund, or if you don't have the money left over to buy to keep paying for this car payment, the bank will take it, right? Even with 0%, like if you lose your job, for example, and you still owe $30,000 on this truck, or you still owe $20,000 on a vehicle, how are you going to pay it if you have no job, right? You never know what emergency and what can happen. Like pilots never thought they could lose your job. Everyone needs to fly.
Oh yeah.
And COVID happens, and every single pilot in the world, most of them were laid off, right? So that's just my thought on why I, even in the future, I wouldn't go for a brand new vehicle with payments. Like I think I would pay in cash down the road if I can afford it, but I think a used vehicle can do just as well, personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of our listeners would probably say that this is a splurge purchase. This is me rewarding myself for graduating from school. Is there ever a time and place to splurge on yourself? And if so, how do you differentiate between, say, buying a truck for yourself versus I did great on this, or we're celebrating an anniversary, we deserve a dinner out? Yeah,
so I think a splurge is like you said, like a reward. Let's say if you, I don't know, you won a race or something, you got first place, like that's you can reward yourself. But to reward yourself by putting yourself in financial burden for potentially the next 5, 6, 7, there's some crazy like car lease out there or car payments out there for like 7 years. Like you could get some crazy monthly payments nowadays. To reward yourself like that, that's not rewarding yourself. That's almost punishing yourself. I feel like you could reward yourself by, like, if you have the money, right? You could go out for a fancy dinner, right? You're not going to finance your dinner. Like imagine walking into a restaurant. How ridiculous would that be? Just say, hey, can I get I don't know, can I get a steak supper and I'll pay you back in a year, with a monthly payment of $250 or something like that, something ridiculous. Like, right. You would never do that. So why would you reward yourself by putting yourself in so much debt that you're living? So many people today are living paycheck to paycheck as a result of trying to reward yourself or trying to live rich. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think the industry is starting to recognize that people are running out of cash on hand and are willing to finance just about anything, because you see online that people are companies are offering, oh hey, you can buy this USB stick for $20, but you can also just finance it if you want, make monthly payments of $1.50. Yeah. And it's just getting absurd.
It's crazy. You can finance everything nowadays. If you go to the Brick or a Home Depot, you can finance wood, you can finance carpet, you can finance bed, you can finance a TV, like a $400 or $500 TV, you can finance that. And then sometimes advertising will get you, like what they say, you don't have to pay for the first 18 months. It's like, oh, wow. It's like free basically, but not paying just means that you're delaying all your payments for later.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's funny coming from a business background. They speak to us about leverage and loans and how those can be useful to finance your business. And I follow a few finance gurus on TikTok, and and they'll say like, oh yeah, you should borrow against your home and invest in the stock market, or things like that. But I don't know, when I hear those kinds of things, I feel like people kind of they miss the boat, and maybe like they pull the money out of their home, but maybe they'll use some of it maybe for a trip or something like that.
Yeah.
Or else it just creates additional stress because they have these payments again that they have to make each month, and then they lose their job and they still have to make those payments. I can understand where they're coming from, but for me personally, I just like the idea of not having any obligations to meet.
Yeah.
Just being able to say like, this is my house, I own it, nobody's ever going to take it away from me.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like not having that, they said that the grass feels different once you have a paid off house, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So Tim, what was the thing, or maybe there wasn't a specific event, but what made you get serious about finances?
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of realizing that it was about time uh, that I started getting serious about investing. So I had opened up just a Quest Trade account actually, and threw maybe like $1,000 in there or something like that. And then I was talking with a buddy of ours, Jackson, and he was just kind of saying, oh, he's an investment advisor, and yeah, he was saying, yeah, if you ever want to talk to me, like invest with me, like let me know. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like this idea. And I got to investing, and I'm like, hey, this feels good. I'm putting money away.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I wonder how much money I can put away.
Yeah.
So I I worked out a budget. It's funny actually. So for the first 2 years as an accountant, I didn't have a budget, and people
Funny
kind of
how
made
that
fun of.
works, eh?
Yeah, right. Like people kind of made fun of me for that. Actually, they're like, oh hey, you're an accountant, but you don't have a budget. And me personally, I thought, oh, I've got my income is greater than my expenses, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, I worked out a budget, and I kind of said, okay, this is what I'm willing to spend. And I realized, holy crap, like, I'm at, I'm usually spending like $200 on restaurants.
Yeah.
I can cut that down. Let's make it $100, or let's
Yeah.
make it $75. And I even just realized I wasn't making um, as much each month as I thought, at least in terms of how much I could save, because
Mm-hmm.
I need to set aside X amount of money for a car. I need to set aside X amount of money each month for insurance. I need to set aside X amount for um, what else do I have? Like, gifts, things like that. And I realized, oh, okay, so I can save $500 a month
Mm-hmm.
just for house savings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I guess it would be, yeah, just kind of meeting with this investment advisor, and then also just realizing, like, now that I'm out of this student loan situation, I want to buy a house,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
but I need to know how much I can put away for this house. So that was another reason why I worked out this budget, is so that I could yeah, figure out, okay, what's a reasonable amount to live on, so that I can save as much as possible for this house.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was kind of my journey to saving and budgeting and investing.
Mm-hmm.
What about yourself? What kind of made you get serious about it, or were you maybe just always serious?
What's funny is I've always been a saver ever since I was a kid. Um, there's a story that my mom tells to people is as a kid, my grandparents would visit us and they would give, you know, they would take my sister and I to the mall and we'll go to the food court. We'll go shopping. We'll go to the food court. And then my grandpa will give me $10 and for lunch, and my grandpa will give my sister $10. And usually what happens is my sister will run off and go buy her lunch. And usually I just stand there, trying to pick the cheapest thing that I can buy for lunch. And sometimes I like don't want to spend the money for the $10 because it just like, I don't know. It was just, I just didn't like spending money. And what's funny is my grandpa actually saw me doing this and was like, you know what? I like your mentality. Take that $10 and save it. Okay. I will buy your lunch for you. Then to this day, it's kind of funny because my mom tells that story and it's just like, it kind of like described who I am, like growing up. My dad was like, it was never cheap. Like my dad was always giving, like very like generous with his money. But when it came to unnecessary spending, he taught me to save first and then buy what you need afterwards. So then that was instilled in me as a really young kid. So getting serious with finances has always been, in terms of finance, it's always been in me. But as goals, like I've always made goals in life. So I was super fortunate that my dad and my mom were able to put me and my sister through school without me getting into loans. So right away, right there, that's something that I want to pass down to my kids. So that's a goal of mine that I have. So in Canada, there's the RESP, which is money that you put into for your kids, and the government will match up to a certain amount up to every year. And so I want to be able to down the road when we have kids. My wife and I, we're no kids yet, obviously, and when we have kids, we want to be able to put our kids through college down the road or university, and not struggle with debt. And I guess that's a goal of mine. And having goals throughout my life, like throughout university, I knew debt was bad. I worked, even though I didn't have student loan debt, I knew I wanted to set myself up well ahead. So that's why I'm so surprised that I bought that truck, because it was just a dumb purchase at the time, because I graduated and I had my first job, and it was just like, oh, I'm gonna do it. But it's just such a dumb purchase. But looking back, like university, I worked multiple jobs. I worked at the gym. I did roofing every summer. I taught English at a school. There's just like so many different things that I did, and just saving and saving and saving. And then the goal for me personally was to save at 20. I wanted to hit that 6-figure number by a certain age of saving. And I did that at a pretty young age, saving really hard. And then now the next goal, like what made me very, very serious, is realizing the goal of potentially being able to buy a house in cash and be mortgage free potentially before I am 30 years old, which is something that, is a big goal of mine. And I think if you're really serious about your finances and you get it in order and you work hard and you live below your means, and I think that's something that's, not everyone can achieve that goal, but I think everyone can achieve financial independence later on in their life if they were serious when they're early in their 20s or 30s or early on in life.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to echo what you said about goals. You always had financial goals.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I rarely, if ever, had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents would give me my allowance. I'd spend it on the weekend at buying a chocolate bar, a pop, and chips.
Yeah.
And um,
Most kids do
I
that.
yeah, I think the most I ever saved growing up was maybe $20 or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even going through university, I didn't have any kind of financial goals. I guess I just kind of had this understanding that, oh, it's normal to have student loans. It's just expected that you get whatever student loans you need to be able to get your way through school. If you have a job, that's great too. And then you just worry about student loans after the fact.
Yeah.
They say you're gonna have a job that's gonna make you way better money than when you're working at McDonald's or Walmart or whatever the case may be.
And how false is that?
Yeah, you don't have to, right?
No.
I mean, you can work while in school. I did that. That helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Find yourself a good job over the summer. Even taking a year off, it's not a bad thing, especially if you're like me, you don't know what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
just take a year, think about what might interest you, take a look at schools online, just what's offered out there, figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So I guess, Tim, what have you started doing, I guess, to ensure that your next goal will be successful then?
Yeah, budgeting has been absolutely a big factor in that. So for example, setting aside money for my next car, even though I expect it to be 4 or 5 years down the road, something like that. But setting aside money now, I even have it invested, so it's earning money that way. But setting aside money now so that I won't have to pay whatever 12% interest, whatever the car dealership offers down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just creating different what are called sinking funds, basically just setting aside certain amounts of money for any kind of issues that may come up down the road. So I've got one for computer repair, or sorry, for a new computer, so that when my current computer conks out, I can get a new one. Yeah, and just you know, even to like just turning down any kind of warranty or insurance, things like that, you know, just making sure I have enough money set aside that if something breaks, I'm going to be able to go ahead and fix it. I'm not, you know, paying a premium for any of that kind of thing. And I've got a pension plan through work, so making sure that you know, I'm saving even now. You know, some of these things have required me to, you know, forgo things like vacations or things like that right now. But you know, I still obviously go on vacations, but it's just maybe not, you know, going to Europe twice a year, down to the Caribbean every you know, every Christmas or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people misunderstand. Like, if you're in debt and you're trying to get out of debt, that it's not saying you can't have fun, right? But hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not saying you can't have fun. Like, it's just saying like even when you have money and you have goals and you don't have debt and you're trying to get, and you could still, like in Tim's case, he still goes on vacation, but it's not saying that he needs to go to Mexico to go into an all-inclusive resort, and every time he dines out, he needs to go to the Keg or a super expensive restaurant. That you could still have fun doing cheap things in life and still succeeding and meeting your financial goals in life.
Yeah, and even, you know, I'm setting aside money for vacation each month, you know, and you know, it's building up so I can take, you know, a more expensive vacation, but it's all about having a plan.
Yeah.
It's all about deciding, okay, what are the things that are important to me? You know, if so, I budget $100 a month for vacation. Maybe vacation is important to you, so you budget $200 a month. You know, and take away from, you know, maybe you're okay with eating like Kraft Dinner and ramen noodles, so you take away $100 out of groceries, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of about setting priorities and knowing how much you'll need for your long-term goals, for you know, being able to put that down payment on a house, for being
100%.
able to retire comfortably,
100%.
just different things like that.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good. So I guess last question, I guess we could both answer this, but what are your financial goals in life? But we're not talking about like 1 year down the road, but we're talking about like, you know, like, where do you see yourself 25 years from now? What do you want to achieve like 25 years from now, like financially, kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess one thing that I would love to achieve is to be able, when I get to my retirement, to be able to get to the point where I'm just living off of like interest, dividends from my investments.
Yeah.
So for example, if you have $1 million and you're getting 8% back, that's $80,000 a year that you're getting just off interest and dividends. I'd love to be able to be at that point. And then, you know, never to really have to worry about my finances from then on forward. I think a lot of people in retirement are, you know, just hoping and praying like that their nest egg doesn't run out. So if I can get to that point, I can know for sure that I won't ever run out.
And Tim, like just to touch on that, I think me and you both know how much you make, but I don't know if you're comfortable sharing with listeners how much you make and things like that. But you're not pulling in $500,000 a year. You're not pulling in like six figures right now, as we both know. So for a lot of people out there, how is that possible?
Absolutely not.
How is that possible that someone who isn't even making six figures will one day have potentially $1 million of nest egg to pull out? Like, because a lot of people, listeners even out there, might think that what you're saying right now is impossible. Like, there's no way someone who makes not even six figures can retire with potentially over $1 million and live off that. There's no way. Like, what he's preaching is ludicrous. Like, what do you have to tell to those people?
Yeah, like, to be honest, I'm not even anywhere really that close to six figures. I'm like between 60 and 70,000 is what I make.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's all about being intentional with your money. It's all about being wise with it, saying, okay, this is how much I can afford to live off of. This is how much I need to save, whether it's for house, for retirement. Um, you really need to know that number that
Mhm.
that you need to put away to be able to achieve your long-term goals.
Yeah.
Even just a rough estimate, and say, okay, this is a non-negotiable.
Hmm.
I am going to put this away, and then kind of work the rest of your budget around that.
Hmm.
So for me, I said, um, you know, $500 towards the house, and then my pension automatically comes off of my paycheck at work.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so now I've got the rest of this cash, and I need to divvy it up accordingly.
Yeah.
And now I've gotten to the point too where I just, I love investing. So any kind of extra that I get on top of that, I'm actually like, nope, I'm putting that away in the
Yeah.
house. Um,
And you know what?
so
That's so key. Like I think the $1 million thing, it's investing. Like if people don't invest, their money just sits there. And each year,
mhm,
I feel like people don't realize that. We'll get into this in another episode down the road, but you're
yeah,
actually losing money because of inflation, right?
yeah,
So, yeah. So I guess me personally, financial goal in life, like I said, I want to have a paid off house, and I want to be able to, be able to take my kids on vacation when we want to. I don't want to have this burden of debt or having a mortgage of um, down the road. And I guess like what Tim mentioned, I want to be able to live off dividends or interest of my investment down the road too. And I guess there's that fire community out there. It's the retire early, financially independence, retire early community, which kind of that's what they base around, where they live off dividends. And I think finance is such a touchy subject for people. And I think
mhm,
the goal of this podcast is to make the taboo topic less taboo for listeners maybe out there. And I think people don't want to talk about finances because a lot of people, frankly, out there struggle with finances. And I think by talking about it, you actually bring up, like there's actually more ways to learn about it. By not talking about it, I think it does more harm than actually good. I don't know if you agree on that, Tim.
yeah, definitely. I think I think a lot of people out there, they kind of have this mentality that, like, I'm poor because I don't make enough, or like I'm broke because I don't make enough. You know, uh, they, I guess, like, they kind of come at it with the idea that, just like, I'll never be able to save. I'll never be able to invest.
Hmm.
It's just life circumstances. But it's funny, some of those people that I know who are like that are also, this is going to sound super cynical or judgmental, but they're also spending twice as much as me eating out.
Yeah.
So it's
It's
I
all
mean,
about your means.
yeah, and absolutely, it's, income plays a humongous factor.
Yes.
um, but I think that's also another area that um, I mean, I'm sure we'll do a podcast about this later,
Yeah.
is that, like, income is really important, and you need to have a plan to have, like, an income down the road where you're going to be able to um, bring in enough that you can, set aside and save. You're not just working a minimum wage job for your whole life. But
Yeah. 100%. Okay. Well, I guess we'll call it an end on that first podcast. Thank you for those who stuck around and listened to the whole thing. And Tim and I hope to do more episodes down the road and hopefully at a consistent
mhm.
basis. And we want to have different guests up on here. We mentioned our friend Jackson there, who's a financial advisor. We want to have him on. There's just a few guests that we want to have on. And I guess we want to grow this. And if viewers have any questions down the road, we want to have like an email where they can send the questions to and things like that. And any closing remarks you want to add, Tim?
um Yeah, I guess I just want to just recap that kind of the two big things I think that really came across in what we've said and have really driven our pathway towards our financial success, are having goals and then having a plan to achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have those in place, you can do anything. You can do anything with your finances once you have those in place. You just need to
100%.
get those in place and just commit to them, stick to them.
100%. Cool. All right. Well, take care, guys, and we'll join you guys another time. Have a good one.